to just another stitch. For those that don't know me, my name is Connie, and today I will be showing you how to knit a basic beanie. And first you're going to need some number 4 weighted yarn, and I am using the Big Twist yarn today, and I'm going to be using the color Orchid. And you will also need some 5mm or US number 8 size circular needles. And I am, for the circular cord, I am using the 9-inch cord. I find it works best for me whenever I'm making beanies where I have more room to juggle, to juggle my stitches, where I'm not constantly having to pull them around. But that is my personal preference. And you will also need double pointed needles, the 5mm and the number 8, the US number 8. And you will need 5 double pointed needles. And this we'll be using at the end when we're doing the decreases. You will also need some scissors and a stitch marker, because you need to mark where the beginning of your row is on your hat. And I recommend stitch counter to keep count of your stitches. And I also recommend some end caps. When you put your work down, you'll want to use some end caps. And also, when I'm casting on, I like to put an end cap at the end of the needle furthest away from the casting on. That way they won't slide off this needle. So first we're going to be casting on 80 stitches, and we're going to be doing a knit 2 purl 2 pattern for the brim. And on some hat patterns you'll see this a little differently. You might see knit 1 purl 1 or knit 2 purl 1, but we're going to be doing knit 2 purl 2 for this tutorial. Okay, so we're going to start casting on. And if you need more practice with casting on, I do have a knitting playlist that has a tutorial for casting on, so you might want to check out that tutorial. But you're going to want to leave a tail, and you want it long enough where you can weave in your ends when you finish making the beanie. But we're going to start casting on. Okay, so you just start casting them on, and you're going to want to cast on 80 stitches. So meet back up with me once you have 80 stitches casted on your knitting needles. Okay, I now have 80 stitches casted on to my knitting needles. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to evenly distribute your stitches, where you want to get them high up on this needle because we're about to connect into the round. And also all your stitches you want to be where you see how I have them all the way around. You want them all, you see, you want that part of your stitches to face the inside all the way around. And make sure they're all facing, because if they're twisted, like say you have it like stuff like that, you see how it's twisted right here? Well, your hat's going to become twisted when you're knitting. So you do not want twisted. So make sure they're all facing inside. Like so. Okay? Okay, so we're fixing to start knitting in the round. And if you need more practice when it comes to knitting in the round, I do have a tutorial in my knitting tutorial playlist. So I'm going to put all the links for these tutorials in the description box on this video. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the brim of the hat now. So we're going to be doing a knit 2 purl 2 pattern. And we're going to do this for 10 rows. So this is where you're going to want your stitch counter. so you can keep track of how many rows you're doing. Okay, so to connect into the round, you want to go into that first stitch here like you normally would for knitting. Okay, and you're going to take your yarn that connects to your skein of yarn and that loose piece of yarn. You're going to grab them both together. Oops. So when you're completing the stitch, it's going to have two strings of yarn. Okay, so you just continue on like you normally would a knit stitch. Let me get it nice and tight. Okay, so you see, and that's how you connect it, because you see how it's connected now. And you want to take your stitch marker for this very first stitch, and you want to put it through both those strings on your knitting needle on the right side, because your first stitch is going to basically be two stitches kind of combined, basically. Okay, there. Okay, so that's what you want to do, how I have it here. Okay, so it's knit 2, purl 2, so that's one knitted. So now I'm knitting that second stitch, and now you're only going to be using the yarn connected to your skein of yarn, so just a single. Okay, and also if you need more practice on knit stitches and purl stitches, I have tutorials on that too. So I knitted 2. Now we're going to the purl. Okay, and you see how I place the yarn in the front, because with a purl stitch your yarn is in the front. Okay, so we're purling. Okay, and now we're going back to knit stitch. So you put it back, your yarn back behind in the back. Okay, and you're going to knit 2 again. Okay, and now we're going back to the purl stitch, so that yarn's going to go back in the front. And let me move these up some. Okay, so we're purling. Okay, we got our 2 purls. Now you want to do 2 knit stitches, so it goes back in the back. So 2 knit stitches. Okay, we're going back to purl, so that yarn goes back in the front, like that. Okay, and like I said, I have tutorials on how to do the knit and the purl stitch. Okay, so that's the first purl, and now we're going into the second purl. And it's being stubborn. Like I said, the very first row is the most difficult. Okay, there we go. Okay. And now we'll be going back to knit 2, so it goes back in the back. And like I said, we're going to just continue doing knit 2, purl 2 all the way around until right before the stitch marker. So stop right before the stitch marker, okay? And we're going to meet back up there. Okay, so we are right before the stitch marker. And what you want to do is, when you hit right before the stitch marker, give your little strand of yarn here, the loose one, a good tug. Because you don't want there to be a gap right at the beginning, okay? So, you want to undo your stitch marker. And now you want to place your stitch marker on the needle like this. Okay, and that marks where the start of the row is, okay? And you want to make sure your needle's in the back again. Okay, so, and as you remember, that first stitch had basically two stitches on it. So you want to go in under those two, like that. Because we're going to be knitting 2 again, okay? Knit 2, purl 2. Okay? And you want to make sure this is nice and snug, because you don't want that gap there, okay? So that first, right here, you want under those 2 stitches that was, that your stitch marker was connected to, okay? You yarn over and you pull through. So that's 1. And give it a little tug. Okay, knit 2. Oh, and one thing too I forgot. Don't forget, you just completed your first row, so you want your stitch marker to be marked 1. Okay. Okay. So we just knitted 2. Now we're going to purl 2. And you see it gets a lot easier now after you finish that first row. Okay, we purl 2. Now we're going to knit 2. The yarn goes in the back again. 1, 2. Okay, now we're going to be purling, so it goes back in the front. 1, 2, and we're going back to knit stitches, so it goes back in the back, and we're going to knit 2, and we're back to purl stitch, so it goes back in the front. Okay, and we're going back to knit stitch, so it goes back in the back. And you're going to continue all the way around until you reach the stitch marker. You do knit 2, purl 2 all the way. So stop when you get to the stitch marker. So now I have finished the second round, so I'm going to put my stitch counter to 2. Okay, so now we're going into the third round. And you want to make sure your yarn is in the back, because we're going to be going to knit stitches. So you slip your stitch marker, okay, and you knit 2, and you purl 2 again. Okay, put that yarn in the back again, knit 2, And now the yarn goes back in the front because we're purling. Okay. And you just keep knit 2, purl 2. Okay, put that back in the back to get ready for the knits. So you just go all the way around, knit 2, purl 2. And you're gonna go around for a total of 10 rounds. So we just finished the second round and we're on the third round. So get 10 rounds and stop on that 10th round right before the stitch marker, and we'll meet back up, okay? Okay, so now I have finished my 10 rows for the brim with the knit 2, purl 2 pattern going around. And one thing I want to point out too when it comes to doing the brim of a hat, sometimes in patterns you may see where they only do 5 rows, or you may see where they tell you to do the brim for 1 inch, and that's where you'll need a tape measure. And this is one thing I forgot to tell you at the beginning of the video, that you will need a tape measure, which I'm about to get into that part. But like I said, sometimes you will see patterns a little differently with how the brim is done. And also, sometimes on brims you will use a smaller needle than the rest of the hat. So at this point, sometimes you may have to use a larger knitting needle when you get to the body of the hat, which is real easy. You're just sticking the needle in like you would, this needle, but you're just using another set. So now I'm going to show you how to do the body of the hat, which is very, very easy because it will be all knit stitches. And for the body, your hat, you'll keep knitting all the way around, and you'll do it until your whole hat measures 7 inches. And whenever I talk about measuring, you take your tape measure and you want it like right under the needle. And it's not going to be exact, and you would measure it to the end. But like I said, don't worry about it being exact. It just has to be like close. So that's what we're going to do now. So just start knitting. And this is how we're doing the knitting all the way around. This is known as the stockinette stitch. And like some patterns will just say stockinette stitch, or they'll tell you just to knit. But when you're knitting in the round, the stockinette stitch is just knit stitches. But if you're knitting flat, it's different, because when you're flat knitting, you would knit the front of the row. When you're on the front side, you would do knits, and on the back side would be purls. But we're knitting in the round, so it's all knit stitches. Okay, so as you see, I'm knitting along, and I'm just going to go all the way around and keep going around until this piece measures 7 inches. And once it measures 7 inches, stop right before the stitch marker, and I'll meet you back there, and then we'll start working on doing the decreases for the hat. Okay? Okay, so I have 7 inches for my hat now, and I'm going to measure it real quick so y'all can see how you need to measure it. Okay? And I'm like basically right under where the needle is. And you go to the end of the hat, and I'm right at about 7 inches, which is where you want to be. So now we're going to start doing the decreases. And this is the point where you want to have your double pointed needles handy, because we will be transferring the project onto double pointed needles. And it's basically, once you feel like it's starting to get tight while you're knitting and you don't have as much room to work, that's where you're going to want to transfer it. And you may be transferring your stitches a little different, at a different time than what I do. Because like I said, it's when you feel like you have no more room to work your stitches. So what we're going to do at this point, we're going to be doing decreases. So for this row, it's going to be knit 8 and then knit 2 together. And we're going to be doing this all the way around. Okay, so we're going to slide that stitch marker over and we're going to knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Now we're going to knit 2 together. Okay. And we're going to keep doing this all the way around until we reach the stitch marker. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to knit 2 together. Okay. And we're repeating that again. We're knitting 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we're going to knit 2 together. Okay. Now we knit 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and now we knit 2 together. Okay, and we're knitting 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we knit 2 together. Okay. And we're knitting 8 again now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we knit 2 together. Okay, and we're going to be knitting 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're doing knit 2 together. Okay. And we're knitting 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and now we knit 2 together. Okay, and now we're at the stitch marker, so we finished the first round of the decrease. So slide the stitch marker. And when you're decreasing, every other row will be a row of just knitting across. So this row that we're fixing to start, we're going to knit all the way across. There's no decreasing on this row. So we're going to knit like this and just keep going. Okay? So just keep knitting around and stop right before you hit the stitch marker, and we'll meet back up there. Okay, so I knitted all the way across. So now I'm going to slip my stitch marker, and we're on a decrease row again. And one thing you'll notice on the decrease rows, it keeps going down by 1 stitch. How on the last decrease row we did knit 8, knit 2 together. Well, this row we're going to knit 7 and then knit 2 together. So let's get started. So it's knit 7, knit 2 together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you want to knit 2 together. Okay. And now we're going to knit 7 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now knit 2 together. Okay, so you're going to just keep going all the way around. You're going to knit 7, knit 2 together, and keep repeating that. Okay, and do it all the way around till right before the stitch marker, and we'll meet back up there. Okay, so we're at the stitch marker, so we're going to slip that stitch marker, and now we're doing a row of knit. So we're going to knit all the way around on this row. See, I'm just knitting. Okay, and you just keep knitting all the way around until you reach the stitch marker, and we'll meet back up there. Okay, we're at the stitch marker again, so we're going to want to slide that stitch marker over, and we're now going to start doing another decrease row. So this time it's knit 6 and then knit 2 together. And I do want to add, if you're not as comfortable with doing the knit 2 together stitch, I do have a tutorial that shows you how to do that stitch. So you might want to go and watch that tutorial. But we're knitting 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now it's knit 2 together. Okay. As you can see, it's starting to get tighter. Okay, so now knit 6. Oops, I don't think I have it right. Knit 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you knit 2 together, and really all it is you just take 2 stitches instead of 1, and you knit them. Okay, so you're going to keep going all the way around doing knit 6 and then knit 2 together until you get back to the stitch marker, and we'll meet back up there. Okay, so we're back at the stitch marker. We're going to slide that stitch marker, and this row is all knit stitches. So we're just going to keep knitting all the way around. And you just keep knitting and get to the stitch marker with all knit stitches, and meet me back when you get to the stitch marker. Okay, so we're back at the stitch marker, and things are starting to get tight. So I'm going to transfer my work to the double pointed needles. So you'll need 5 double pointed needles for this part, and it's a 5mm I'm using. So we take the stitch marker off, and what I like to do is I take my stitch marker and I put it right below my stitches, like right in here. This way I'll know when it's on the double pointed needles where the new round starts. So I grab one needle, and this is a decrease row, and we're going to be doing knit 5, knit 2 together. So you insert the needle just like you normally would when you're doing a knit stitch, and you want to make it tight to get a good connection. So we're knitting 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're knitting 2 together. Okay. And I'm going to put a stitch, an end cap at the end right here. That way it's not likely that my stitches will come off. It's just a little thing that I find that helps. So we're going to do this again. Knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're knitting 2 together. Okay. So now we're going to move on and grab your second double pointed needle, because you're going to, on your double pointed needles, you'll be using 4 needles to put the stitches on, and then the 5th one is to knit your stitches with. So now we're going into right here. Okay. Just stick your needle in like you normally would to knit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're knitting 2 together. Let me get these stitches moved up. And you'll have to kind of move your stitches up, like what I'm doing right now. Okay, so now we're going to knit 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now knit 2 together. Okay, now you want to grab your third double pointed needle. And like I said, you're just sticking it in like you normally, you're just sticking it in like you normally would when you're knitting. Okay. And this part will be a little awkward, especially the first time you're doing it. So we're knitting 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're knitting 2 together. Okay. And now we're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we knit 2 together. Okay. Now we bring in that fourth double pointed needle. Okay, and you see you just go in like you are to knit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now knit 2 together. Okay, now we're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now you're going to knit the last 2 together. And it's being stubborn. Oh, I can't get it through. This last one's giving me trouble. Okay, I think I have it now. Okay, and as you see, your circular needles came off. You see? It's off. Okay, so you just completed the decrease row. And as you see, the stitch marker is right here. So that's how you know that this is the start of the new round. So this is a row of just all knit stitches. So we're just going to go around knitting. Let's see. And like I said, and one thing I forgot to mention, I grabbed my 5th double pointed needle, and that's what we're knitting with. And you see we're just knitting. And I'm going to show you this whole round since it's on the double pointed needles. So, and you know, it's a little different in a sense than the circulars, but you're really doing the same exact thing. It just looks more awkward, and it feels a little more awkward. Okay. So we finished the first needle. Okay. Now we move on to the second needle. Because as you see how it goes, you see, it still basically makes a circle. But the circle really kind of becomes a square, I guess you can say. Okay, so we're on to the second double pointed needle. Okay. And you just continue. And one thing too, you want to try to make a tight connection when you get to the new needle on your first two stitches. You want to knit tightly. That way you're not as prone to having a gap in your work. But you see all we're doing, we're knitting all the way around. Okay. Now we're going to the third needle. And you just keep knitting. And like I said, it is going to feel awkward, especially the first time you do it. Okay, so now we go to the fourth needle. And we start knitting. We're almost finished the round. Okay. And you see, we finished the round. We're back to that stitch marker right here. So now we're back to a row of decreases. And we're going to be knit 4, then knit 2 together. And you just keep doing knit 4, knit 2 together all the way around. And I'm going to do this whole round for y'all too, because I know it looks a little different, but it's really the same thing. It's just on double pointed needles. Okay, so we're knitting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're knitting 2 together. Oops. Knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now you knit 2 together. Okay. Finally got it. Okay. So we finished the first needle. Now we go to the second needle. And we're knitting 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we knit 2 together. Oops. These knit 2 together, so giving me a hard time. Okay. Okay, knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're knitting 2 together. Okay. Now we move on to the third needle. Okay, knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you knit 2 together. Actually, I don't have that one right. Okay. Okay, now knit 4 again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now you knit 2 together again. Okay. Now we're on the last needle. You knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now you knit 2 together. And you knit 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you're going to knit 2 together. Okay, and we're in at the end of the round because you see that stitch marker again. Now we're doing a row of knit stitches. Okay, and I'm not going to go through from this point on all the way around because at this point you should have it. Okay, so we're doing just knit stitches all the way around. Okay, so we're knitting all knit stitches. And meet back up with me when you get to the end of the round. Okay, so we're back at that stitch marker. So on this round, we're going to knit 3, knit 2 together. So 1, 2, 3. Now knit 2 together. This stitch is being stubborn on me too. There it goes. Okay, knit 2 together. Okay, now knit 3. 1, 2, 3. And now we knit 2 together. Okay. Okay, and we're finished with the first needle. And you're just going to keep going around and knit. You're going to knit 3 and then knit two together. And just keep doing knit 3, knit 2 together all the way around until you get to the end of the round right before the stitch marker. Okay, so we're at the end of the round again. As you can see, the stitch marker's right there. And this is a row of knit stitches. So we're just going to knit all the way around. Where's my yarn? So all we're doing is knit stitches on this round. And you just keep going all the way around. And we'll meet back up when you get to the end of the round, right where the stitch marker is. Okay, so now we're at the end of the round again. We have our stitch marker right here. And on this row, we're going to be decreasing. We're going to knit 2 and then knit 2 together. And where's my yarn? Here it is. So 1, 2, and you knit 2 together. Okay, knit 2, 1, 2, and you knit 2 together. Okay, and we finished with the first needle, and you just keep going all the way around, knit 2 together until you get to the end of the round right before the stitch marker, and I'll meet you back up there. So we're back at the stitch marker, and this row is going to be all knit stitches. So we're just going to knit all the way around. And by now y'all should see how the pattern works with this. And we just keep on knitting. Okay? And go all the way around, and we'll meet back up at the end of the round right before the stitch marker. So we're back at the end of the row, and here's our stitch marker. And this is going to be the last row that we're going to be doing for the beanie, and then we'll start closing it off and finishing the beanie and adding a pom to it. So we're going to knit 1, knit 2 together. So knit 1, okay, knit 2 together. Okay, so knitting 1, and now knit 2 together. Okay, so we're just going to keep going all the way around where you knit 1, then knit 2 together, and meet me back up at the end of the round before the stitch marker. Okay, we have finished our round. We're back at the stitch marker. And now we're going to be closing off the hat. And one thing I forgot to mention to you at the beginning of the video, you will need a tapestry needle for this part. So what you want to do is, you want to take your yarn, and you want to leave a good enough, you want to leave a good amount of a tail where you have enough to go through all the stitches that's remaining on the beanie and tie everything off. So I'm going to cut my yarn. Now we're going to put it through the tapestry needle. Okay, so you thread your tapestry needle. Okay, and all you're doing is Let's see. Trying to find. My yarn's a mess here. Okay, here I am. Okay, so you start at the beginning of the new round, and you take your tapestry needle and you just put it under the stitches like this. You see how I have it? You're just going in. Where basically you could do it like this. You see how it goes? And you could just take that stitch off. But I tend to like going through all the stitches on the needle. I find it's at once. I find it's easier. But you can do it one by one. But you see how I have it? And you just remove the needle and go pull through those stitches. Now we go to the next needle and you're doing the same thing. So you're just putting that needle through the loop. You see how it is? And you go through all the loops on the needle. Well, I'll go through 3. I can't get that last one. And you just pull your yarn through it all. Okay, I'll get that last one now. And you remove your needle. And you pull, and you want to pull these tight too. Which we're going to give it a good tug at the end too. But now you're going to go through your remaining stitches here. Get that last one. Okay, and you remove your needle. Well, my battery died while I was filming, so I got some more charge on my battery now, so we're gonna finish the tutorial. So we're gonna go through the last needle of stitches. Okay, oops, let me move that closer. Okay, here's the last part. And we take the needle out, pull it through. Okay, and you want to make sure you give it a good tug because you want it all to be tight at the top. Okay, and what I do to finish closing it off, I take my needle to go to the other side across. See, I take it right like this. I go across it, and I put the needle through the hat, and I pull it. Okay, then I put my hat inside out. Okay, so what I do is I just kind of grab some stitches across like this, and I like to kind of knot it to make it secure. So before I pull the yarn all the way through, I run my needle through it like this. Okay, then I go sideways like that, and I pull it and I put the needle through it again like so. Okay, and I'm going to go one more time through. Okay, go through a few stitches like that, pull it, and then I let my needle go through and pull it. And then I cut the yarn and your hat is closed. Okay, and I will show you You see, it's closed at the top now. And we have that piece of yarn from the beginning of the hat, and this needs to be weaved in. So you take your tapestry needle and you thread it again with that piece of yarn. Okay? And you want to work in the inside of your hat. And you just kind of go through, you just kind of take it and go through some stitches. But you don't want it where it's you don't want to go where the yarn will show through on the front. So be careful with that. There it goes. Okay, and I'm going to go up some more stitches to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay. Okay. So now I'm just going to cut that yarn. Okay. And the beanie is now finished. Okay. So you could leave it like this. Or you could add a palm to it, which I'm going to add a palm to it so y'all can see how to add a palm. And this is a palm that I had made. And I have a tutorial on making palms. So if you want to learn how to make palms, go check out that tutorial. I'm going to link it with this video here. And I show how to do it the multicolored. But even if you just want to make a plain palm, you can, that tutorial will work for that too. So you want to take, you have your two loose threads, your two loose yarns on your palm. So you want to take one and you're going to thread it through your tapestry needle. If it wants to cooperate, let me trim that. Okay. Okay. So I went in through the tapestry needle. You want to go to your top of your hat. Okay. And you see right here it's saying you want to go a little over. And you pull that through. Okay. And then make sure you put it through the hat good. And then you're going to take your tapestry needle off. And you're going to grab that other loose yarn. And you're going to thread the tapestry needle with that yarn. And you want to go across. Try to show y'all better. You see how that, and here's the center. You want to go on the other side. So about there. And you pull your tapestry needle through the hat. Okay. And you see that's what it looks like on the inside. And you remove the tapestry needle. And what you do is you just knot, make a knot, and pull it tight. And I usually do 3 knots to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, and then you trim these yarns. Okay, and now you have your palm attached to the hat, and that is how you make a basic beanie. I am going to put the link for the pattern for this beanie in the description box below. I did not design this pattern, so I want to make that clear. The pattern is from Little Gray Heart. And like I said, I'm putting the link in the description box below. And I hope y'all enjoy this tutorial. And I hope y'all enjoy making beanies. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.